Hello, everyone. Welcome to another webinar in this eGMAT series for Data Insights. Thank you very much, gmatclub, for giving us this opportunity to be present in front of all of you to talk about table analysis today. In this session, we're going to take 5 difficult table analysis questions, and we're going to talk about how is it that you need to think about these questions so that you can not only answer these questions accurately, but also efficiently. So we are going to work on both of these things, your accuracy and your efficiency. And a number of questions that you're going to see, at least 3 questions in this session are what I term as time hog questions. But if you apply the strategies of owning the data set and of drawing inferences in the right manner, then you will be able to solve those questions efficiently in under 2 minutes. Okay, so that's going to be my promise to you to expose you to these strategies so that you start to build your skills with the intent to answer these questions both accurately and efficiently. All right. So with this, let's get started. There are certain things with regards to table analysis that we will need to keep in mind because there is a table that you need to be able to sort. There is a data set that you need to be able to read. So you're going to solve 5 questions. So we are going to solve one question, and then we're going to talk about in detail as to how you should have approached that question. Now, when you solve the question, I will share 2 links with you. One is the link for you to download the table, okay, so that you have the sortable table with you. Number 2 is the link where you're going to enter your responses for each of the 3 statements: statement 1, statement 2, statement 3. Okay, so let me share those links with you real quick. This is for your first question. So here it goes. So I'm going to share this. This is for you to post your responses. So I want you to open this link at your end so that you get acquainted with this. So the link should look something like this. And you will essentially start with still solving. So click on still solving for each one of these. Oh, sorry, this is my view of it, right? So you will I want you to click on still solving for each one of these. Let's just again, yeah. So this is how it would look like. So click on still solving, and then as soon as you find your answer, I want you to click on whether it's yes or no for each of the 3 statements, and then you simply submit the answer. I will give you about, I would say, 30-second warning before I would want you to put in your answers. Okay, even if it's still solving, that's absolutely fine. Again, it's a very low risk environment that we are in here. So I just want you to do your very best when you are attempting these questions. Okay, now while I give you the link for the table to be sorted, I want you all to say hello to everyone over here. Tell us where you're joining us from. Tell me what problems you're facing with table analysis questions. And then as and when I get a chance to address those issues, I will definitely take those questions. Okay. Now I will share another link with you, and that is for the sortable table. So let me get that going. Question. Here it goes. So yeah, a little bit of logistics over here. Hi, Darshan from Pune. By the way, I'm joining from Bangalore here. So here is your next link. So click on this and download the table. And as you do that, so put still solving, right, for each of the 3 statements in this link that I shared in this link, and then download your table using this link. And here is your question. You can read the question text, the data set there. You have the table, and you have these 3 statements on your screen. Okay. Now I see that you won't be able to see this statement here. So let me just move these things. Again, as I said, a little bit of logistics issues here. So here you go. You should be able to see everything now. All right. So go ahead. I'm going to mute myself, solve this question, and I'll see you on the other end. Okay. All right, let's put in your answers. Okay, I don't see any responses. Can you guys put in over here, put in a comment over here telling me that you need more time, or are you guys good with where you're at? Because I have only 2 responses as yet. All right, I'm going to end this poll now, and we are going to start discussing this one, okay? Let's do this one here. Okay, so here are the responses for this question. So 5 of you selected yes here. Statement 2, there are 3 of you who said no, 3 of you who said yes, 2 of you who said no. And then likewise for statement 3 also, there is a mixed bag. So we can see that there is a mixed set of responses here. The correct answer is yes. So statement 1, everybody has gotten correct. Statement 2, and I'm going to now, yeah, statement 2 has been the correct answer here is no. So 3 of you have gotten it incorrect. And then statement 3, the correct answer is yes. So again, 3 of you have answered this incorrectly. So overall, not a very high accuracy question. And you guys took quite a bit of time. Okay. So let's understand how is it that we should be solving this question. And while I walk you through this solution, I want you to tell me what is it that you need to where is it that you faltered in this? Now Subhash is saying that sorting is not working in the Excel. Why is that? It should be working. Let me download it myself. One second. um, is is anybody else facing similar issues with sorting? Because you have the Excel sheet, so you should be able to make it editable and then do sorting. All right, so while you guys answer this question, let's go through how is it that we should be solving this. So it's working. All right. So Subhash, you will need to figure out as to what's going on at your end. Okay. So let's understand how is it that we should be solving. Whenever you're looking at a data insights question, the one thing is that you always have to keep in mind that you need to own the data set. Okay. That owning of the data set is very important. And what do I mean by that? By that, what I mean is, as you are reading the table, you need to associate these headers of the table with the data set. So let's look at this. So essentially, the table shows the normal and extreme high and low temperatures. Now this is a pretty loaded information over here, but this information actually relates to these 4 columns. Okay, normal over here, extreme over here, high and low temperature. High has been written as max and low has been translated into minimum. Okay, so just these 4 words over here, normal and extreme, high and low temperatures, this little phrase actually maps to each one of these four headers. So you need to be able to make that connection, okay? And the normal and maximum amounts of precipitation. So normal precipitation, maximum precipitation, all right? Now, the numbers are round for each month of the year at the same location. So for each month of the year at the same location. So again, as you are reading the data set, you need to be able to associate that with column headers, with row headers, and then you need to essentially see these numbers and just internalize that data. Okay, the numbers are rounded, so identical numbers may represent slightly different quantities. So just some more information given to us that it's rounded. Okay, so now you take up a value over here for August. You can see that normal daily max temperature was 17.8, extreme low was 5.6, and so on and so forth. So again, you don't have to read all the data points, but read just a couple of data points just so you get that solid handle of what the data is talking about. So there are four columns. There are four columns on temperature, normal and extreme. Then there are two columns for precipitation, normal and maximum. Okay, so now with this understanding, you look at the individual statements. So let's look at this. And just to let you know, this is one of the easier questions. This is a question which is intended to get you warmed up with the whole idea of what table analysis entails. Okay. Now the question statement tells us what. Let me get back to the presentation here. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is accurate based on the information provided, otherwise select no. Okay, so if the statement is accurate, then I select yes. If not, then I select no. Okay, now let's go back to our table here. Okay, the 3 months, so you read each statement one by one. The 3 months with greatest normal, and let me just, all right, sorry. That's what I wanted to do. Okay. The 3 months with greatest normal daily minimum temperatures. Now, where is it? So essentially, there are 3 months with what categorization? With greatest, so maximum, normal daily minimum temperature, which means that I need to take a look at this normal daily minimum temperature. And when I sort this over here, this should give me this should essentially, so let's sort this. So these are the 3 months which I need. So bottom part of normal daily minimum temperature, this is what I need to be thinking about. Also have, so these 3 months, what are these 3 months? July, August, September. So this was in the order of July, September, August, but I switched it so that I make my notes appropriately, right? Now, I have the luxury of writing this down over here. I have the luxury of doing all of this highlighting over here. But in the exam environment, you will not have that luxury, which is why you have to utilize these techniques of making appropriate notes so that you keep track of the information. Okay, so these 3 months with greatest normal daily minimum temperature also have the greatest, so which means that when I sort, these should come at the bottom. Okay, right, normal daily maximum temperature. So daily maximum temperature is this one, which means that when I sort this, I'm going to sort this, these are the greatest ones, and these are the 3 months, July, August, September. So as you can see on the screen, whatever I highlighted over here, those are still in yellow, but this luxury is what you are not going to have in the exam environment, which is why making these notes are making such notes is very, very important. Okay, so the answer over here is yes. Okay, now the thing to keep in mind is, as I was reading this statement, I was translating it. I didn't read the entire statement. I was breaking the statement down into smaller chunks, and that is what is called as reading with strategic pausing. Okay, so I was doing this in smaller parts, and as I was breaking the statement down into smaller chunks, I was associating that information with the information in the table, and I was actually collecting my data, making my notes, and then solving the statement as I go along. Okay, how many of you do table analysis in this manner? Write that down while I go to statement number 2, which is where a number of you made mistakes. Okay, let's look at statement 2 here now. Let me just get this a little bit down so that we can focus more on this. Merge, and then, yeah, okay. The 3 months, so now again, I am down to 3 months again, 3 months with greatest. So I read greatest, which means this will be at the bottom when I sort it, okay? Maximum amounts of precipitation, okay? Greatest maximum amounts of precipitation. So again, I go back to my column. This is the column that I need to be thinking about, okay? So the last column here also have, okay, so what is common with this? Least, which means that these will appear on the top when I sort it. Extreme high temperature. So where is extreme high temperature? This column. So these are the two columns that I have to think about. Now, in the exam, you will not have the luxury to mark your column headers like this, which is why you need to write down in your notes last column and third column, right? So over here, you will write down last column and third column so that you don't inadvertently make mistakes. Again, these are all little tips which you need to imbibe in your process of solving questions so that you are not caught unawares when you are actually taking the test in the test environment. Okay, so now bottom, last, is that the same as top, third? Okay, so that's what I take with me. Now let's do the sorting. Again, sorting comes in very, very handy, which is why I gave you these tables. So I sort this. So, bottom last one. So these were November, December, Jan. I'm going to write this down over here. November, December, Jan. Okay. And then I'm going to, and right now I'm going to highlight it as well. We have the luxury. Why not utilize that right now? Okay. While we are learning these tips. And then my third column, which is over here. So I'm going to now sort this one over here. And I had to focus on the top ones, right? Now look at this. I needed to focus on the top three, and you can see March is not the one which was in the top three for this column, which means that the answer to this question is no. Okay, so the answer to this one is no. Okay, because here November, December, and March is what I have arrived at, right? Yes, November, December, January, December, and March. Sorry. January, December, and March. So the answer is no. Okay. Now, for those of you who made a mistake, I want you to tell me, why did you make a mistake? Most likely, the reason for that is that you may have gotten confused about what is going to be with the greatest part over here, which one, which column to pick, how do I relate greatest with the column, and what is it that I need to do? And the reason and the corrective action for this kind of mistake is to have a very solid understanding of how is it that you need to be analyzing the data, which is that you look at greatest, and in your head you should know, when I sort, I'm going to get my greatest values at the bottom. So you convert greatest to bottom. Okay, then you convert all of this information to what column, which column are you looking at, right? So you do all of this conversion appropriately, convert least to top. Okay, all of this translation needs to happen. Only then you will be able to answer this question efficiently and accurately. Okay, all right, so now with this, we are going to take a look at our last one over here, last statement. All right, so let's look at it. The 4 months. Now here we are talking about 4 months. Okay, 4 months with the least. Least means least translates to top. Normal amounts of precipitation. So let's go back to our table. Normal amounts of precipitation is what? It is the second last column over here. Okay, and I'm going to remove the highlighting here. Okay. All right, so my second last column. So I go back here. This is my second last column. Okay, also have the greatest, which means that these will appear on the bottom when I sort it. Normal daily minimum temperatures. Normal daily minimum temperatures are in column number 2. Okay, so I write this down, column number 2. So second last, top, second column, bottom. If these are matching for all the 4 entries, then we are good. Okay, so now let's do that. So second last, and I sort it. What do I get? I get these 4 over here, November and February, Jan, December. So November, December, Feb, Jan, Feb. So November to Feb. November. Oh, this had to be top. See, I had to, yeah, this needed to be on the top. So I'm not selecting the correct ones. See, and this is where your notes come in very handy. Okay, so normal one. So I needed to go top. July, August, June, July, August, September. So June to September. Okay, and now I go over here, sort it, and these needed to be in the bottom. June, July, September, August. Absolutely. So the answer to this is yes. Okay. All right. So what have we learned from this question? What we have learned from this question is that you have to be very, very particular about the data set. How is it that you are interpreting each one of these entities? That's very important. This entire thing over here mapped to these four columns. This entire thing over here mapped to these two columns. Okay, and then as you are reading the information, what you have to do is be very clear about what is 3 months, what is greatest, how does this relate to bottom versus top, and which column, and so on and so forth. And as you are taking information, you have to be able to abbreviate these in your notes so that you are absolutely certain about not missing anything. Okay, so difficult question, but one of the easier ones that we are going to be taking in this session. So, what have you learned so far while I set you up for the second question? Okay. And if you like what you have seen so far, hit the like button so that more and more GMAT aspirants can benefit from this session. But right now, I definitely want to hear from you as to what you have learned from this question and why is it that you answered this question incorrectly. And even if you answered it correctly, what new things have you learned with the in the manner from the manner in which I have explained to you as to how to solve this question? All right, so I'm going to now move on to the next question and I'm going to share these links. Okay, question number 2. Here is the form link. This is the form for question number 2. And here is the table for question number 2. Okay, so download this and I'm going to show you the next question. Here it is. And let me just move these a little bit up so that it's not blocked by this sharing notification. All right, so here's the question. Go ahead, click on still solving on the other one. And I'm still waiting for your comments here. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. So please put in your answers. Have you guys made any updates to this? Because I don't see any responses yet, and it's been about 3 minutes already. Do you guys need more time? Because we're already halfway into the session and we have 5 total questions to be covered. All right, let me see what's going on here. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start discussing this question. I haven't received any responses yet, so not sure as to what's going on. So let me just start describing how to solve this question, unless you guys have any comments for me. So in this question, it is a difficult question, but the main thing that you can do to make this question really a cakewalk for you are two things. One is that as you are reading the question, you draw inferences. And before you even look at the statements, you make sufficient number of inference. You translate this table into another table for yourself. And utilizing that table, you will be able to answer all the 3 statements in one go. And that is a very interesting aspect about certain table analysis questions. And similar thing applies to graphic interpretation questions as well. So GITA, that an overall analysis of the data set can help you answer all the 3 statements in table analysis questions. Likewise, overall analysis of the data set can help you answer both the blanks in graphic interpretation questions. And we call that as interdependent blanks. Okay. Now, that same philosophy applies here. Now, if you think about the previous question, in the previous question, you had to analyze each of the 3 statements one by one, right? The analysis was the processing was pretty similar, but you had to take each statement, translate that, and then do the processing. Whereas here, as I'm going to explain to you, the processing is going to be common for all the 3 statements, and that is the basis of how you can make this question, which is typically a time hog question, into a time saver question. Okay, so let me walk you through how that can be done. So let's get our Excel sheet here. Take question number 2. Okay, there you go. So the first and the foremost thing with this question is that you need to be able to translate what does most geographically typical mean. Okay, and I want you to tell me what is it that you understood from this definition of most geographically typical. Okay, for each of the 4 categories of statistics, so you look at these 4 categories, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so as I'm reading the data set, I am looking at my table. So both of those things need to be done side by side, right? A state or territory is typical if and only if it is neither among, if there is neither, that means there are going to be 2 conditions, one condition and then the second condition, right? If only if it is neither among the 25% of the states with the least values. Okay, so now, and this is where you have to understand, there is this 25%. What does that 25% mean? So what you see is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are a total of 8 states here. So as you are reading, you are contextualizing that, right? So there are a total of 8 states, which means 25% of 8 means 2 over here. So they are neither among the 2 with the least values, so neither among the top 2. Okay, so if you have now translated 2 and least 2, neither in the 2 top, nor among the 25%, again, 2 of the listed territories with the greatest value. So neither in the top 2 nor in the bottom 2, which means how many are left? So these are the 4 center ones or the 4 middle ones. Okay, so that is what your translation of most geographically typical me is, right? How many of you did that translation? And Aviral, you're absolutely right, shouldn't be in top two and bottom two. And this translation needed to be done right up front, not later on, but as you are reading the question statement, you should be able to do that analysis. Okay, that is the way, that is the mindset that you need to have. Don't leave it till the end. Okay, now you can actually start to draw inferences from this. You can start to figure out how many states are geographically typical in each of these. But before you do that, take a quick look at the question state at the statements. New South Wales is typical in more categories than any other listed state. No listed state is more geographically typical. Okay, Australian is not typical. So essentially, each of these three statements is about this definition. What states are geographically typical, what states are not geographically typical. Okay, so which means that you don't really have to do separate analysis. You really need to apply this definition of geographically typical and understand which ones of these are and which ones of these are not. Okay, so now we're going to start analyzing our data. Let me get rid of all of this. We understand what is the definition of geographically typical. So now I do have the luxury of writing things down over here, but I'm not going to write that because I want to simulate how you should be taking notes in the exam environment. Okay, so let's get started. So you're going to have this. Let's sort this. Now I have to pick these four over here, right? So I'm going to start creating my tally table. Victoria, New South Wales, South Australia, Northern Territory. What am I doing? I'm picking these up here because these are my geographically typical. So I'm going to write down 1, 1, 1, 1 because they are in this land area. Okay, so I'm going to erase this. Now let's move on to the next one. I'm going to do this sorting. Again, I need to pick these four. So I need to pick these over here. Tasmania, that is a new one. So I'm going to write 1. South Australia, I already had that over there. Western Australia, this is another new one. So I'm going to write down Western Australia, 1. And then Queensland, another new addition, Queensland. So see what I'm doing? I'm building my table as I am getting this data. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one over here. Okay. So these four over here, middle four, South Australia, Queensland, Tasmania. So South Australia 4, Queensland, we added that earlier. Okay, so Queensland, another one, Tasmania, another one, New South Wales. Okay, so I have now last one here. Let's do that. And again, I'm taking my notes in a certain organized manner, right? They are not as neat as I would want them to be, but that's okay. If you are in time, so if you are in time crunch, that's absolutely fine. Your notes need to make sense to you. Okay, that's the most important thing. Northern Territory. So this is a new one. No, this is not the new one. I already had that. New South Wales, I have it here. Victoria, I have it here. Western Australia, I have it here, and I am done. Okay, now if you look at this, you can count these. This is 2. I'm going to elaborate, expand on this here. This is 2. This is 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 2. You didn't even need to do it this way, but I just wanted to do that. Now you had total of 8, right? How many do we have here? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, which means that one of the states or territories is not geographically, what was that? Geographically typical, right? Right? So one of them is not. So now with this information, what you're going to do is you are going to answer each one of these 3 statements. So let's look at this one. New South Wales is typical. So New South Wales, New South Wales, what happened to my pen here? Sorry about that. All right. Yeah. So New South Wales is typical in more categories than any other listed state or territory. Now, New South Wales is 3, right? And South America is also 3. South Australia is also 3, which means that the answer for this is no. Is typical in more categories than any other listed state. No, it's not, because South Australia is also typical in the same number of categories, which means the answer to that is no. No listed state or territory is more geographically typical than South Australia? The answer to that is yes, because South Australia has three. There is nothing else which has four. So the answer to that is yes. The Australian Capital Territory, so that was the one which is missing, is not typical in any of the categories. Absolutely yes. This is the one that was missing. So that's it. Okay. So how we solve this question is the testament to this entire philosophy of owning the data set. And what does owning the data set entail? It entails that you understand that you're able to translate the entire data set in your own words, and you draw sufficient number of inferences so that when you come to the statements, you are absolutely comfortable answering those statements. Okay. So what have you taken away from this question? And I need to hear some comments from you. You are awfully quiet. Either you're not enjoying the session, or you are, I don't know what the other option is for you to be quiet here. Okay. So tell me, what is it that you have learned so far? And I will be sharing the next set of um, polls with you. Okay. And also, please like the session if you are enjoying the session, if you're learning from this session. But I really need to see your learnings mentioned in the comments. So start typing. Okay. All right. So with this, let's move on to statement question number 3 here. Here is question 3. And this is the form. Well, if you don't want to put in the form, then just put your answers here. Yes, no, yes, or whatever you want to put. Okay. But let me share the Excel sheet with you. Now, this is a question which is definitely a time hog question. Okay. Typically, people take upwards of 4 minutes to solve this question. So this is a time hog question. So I am going to give you sufficient amount of time, but there is a way to approach this question in a very to ensure that you don't make mistakes. Okay, so we are going to learn some strategies for when you need to use the calculator and when is it that you should not be using the calculator. So in this case, we are especially for statement number 3, I will want to hear from you whether you felt the need to use the calculator or whether you did estimations. I've already given you a little bit of a hint for this particular question. The other thing is, there will be questions in the exam environment which you will feel as if you won't be able to solve in 2.5 minutes, and that's okay, because not all questions will be like that. The 2 questions that we've already solved, you should not be taking any more than 2.5 minutes to solve those questions. In fact, if I were to tell you question number 1, you can definitely solve within 2.5 minutes easily. Question number 2, you should be able to solve in less than 2.5 minutes. Okay, if again you have a very solid understanding of solid control of the entire owning the data set approach. Okay, all right, so solve this question. I'm going to be quiet now, and I'm going to give you about 4 minutes to solve this question. All right. All right, I am going to look at whether we have received any responses or not in the form. I still don't see any responses. So let me get started with the solution. I've given you upwards of 4.5 minutes to solve this question. So any comments on where you are stuck in this question? No comments? Okay. All right. So let's look at this one. This one, as I said, is a time hog question. So I am going to, let's stop this and let's look at question number 3 here. Okay. So let's read this information. According to the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, 43 US states and 1 US territory experienced bank failures from 2000 through 2011. The 21 states or territories grouped together in one row, 21 other states. Okay, so you have individual rows over here, and you have this other 21 states which have been grouped together in one row. Each experienced less than 5 bank failures in the period shown. Okay, so let's understand this a little bit. So we have this period from 2000 all the way to 2011. That's what the data set said. And we have these states over here. There was 1 bank failures, none in 2007 and 2008 in Wisconsin, and then a handful over here. And then 2011 there were 3 total. There were 7. Okay. Now, likewise in Kansas we had really about 8 over here. Then Illinois had quite a few, and so on and so forth, right? So we understand that. Now the last 21 other states and territories, these have been grouped together. Why? Because the maximum number over here was less than 5, and that is something that you can see, that total a particular state or territory deserves a row if it has at least 5 bank failures. And that is what the data set over here also talks about, that these have been grouped because each one of these experience less than 5 bank failures. So we understand the data set, right? Now what we're going to see is, take a look at each of these statements, and let me make sure that I have the statements in the correct order. So the first one is of the individual states. So this one over here. So let's bring this statement up here so that we can look at it in the context of this particular. Okay, let's move it here. All right. Let's get this out of the way. And I'm going to increase the font. Of the individual states, let's read this. Listed that experience at least 1, so greater than or equal to 1 bank failure in 2008. So I have to look at 2008 over here. So I'm going to sort this at least 1 and at least 10 bank failures. So I have to look at all of these over here, okay, and at least 10 bank failures. So there are 2 conditions here, right? 10 bank failures in 2010. So so these are the 2 conditions. So I look at over here. So again, I can sort by only 1 column at a time, right? Now in Excel, I can sort by 2 columns, but I'm not going to utilize that facility that I have. So these are the ones, and here I have to select the ones that have at least 10. So let me look at this one. I have this one here. I have these 2. I have these 2. Okay. In 2010, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. No more than 3. Okay. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is, look at what I did over here. I ended up making a selection over here for 21 states, and that is wrong. Okay. Why? Because these 21, this is a grouping, but what the question is talking about is individual states, which means that in my selection, I am not going to take this one here. I'm just going to take this. So again, you have to be careful when you are making selection of the appropriate rows over here. Okay. No more than 3. So now this is my data set over here. I'm going to highlight it. It was this one, it was this one, and this one. These are the 4 states that I need to focus on. No more than 3 states experience declines in bank failures from 2010 to 2011. What does that mean? That when I go from 2010 to 2011, no more than experience decline. So I should be able to see that 2011 number should be less than 2010 number. That is what I should be able to see. Okay, right? So that is what's going on here? Yeah. All right. So 2011 number needs to be less than 2010 number. So let's look at that. Come back over here. 2011 is less than this one. Absolutely, it is less. Here also it's less. Here also it's less. Here it is not less. And I have three states for which 2011 number is yes is less, which means that this statement is correct. Okay. So we are good with this statement. Okay. Now let's take a look at. So how did I go about solving this question? Because what I did was, again, exactly what I did with question number one. As I was reading the question statement, this statement, I was reading it utilizing strategic pausing as a technique. Okay. Now, this is a technique which is a very fundamental technique that we teach in our master comprehension course in eGMAT, and that's a foundational course for all of verbal, and as you can see, for data insights as well. So as you read the statement, you break it down into smaller parts, and as you are reading each part, you're looking at the table to extract the data, and you're making your notes, and then you're solving the question as you are reading the question statement with the strategic pausing. Okay, that's the technique which you absolutely need to master if you want to solve questions with that confidence and efficiently. Okay, so now let's take a look at our second question across the United States. This is the second question. So I'm going to move this here, and let me just, okay, Excel doesn't work the way whiteboard does. All right, so I'm going to, all right, so let's get rid of all of this annotation. Okay. Now, across the United States and territories that each experienced more than 45 bank failures in all the time frame displayed across the United States. Okay, that each less than a third of all the bank failures that occurred during the time frame displayed occurred in 2010. So if you read this entire statement in one go, you will get confused. Okay, and which is where you have to read it again by strategically pausing. Okay, now one thing over here is, as you read this, you should be able to see that we are talking about total bank failure. So total of 45, more than 45 bank failures. So let's come and sort this over here. More than 45 bank failures means it's these three over here. Okay, these are the three things that you have to keep in mind, and it's good 21 other states are not even included over here, so you don't really have to worry about that. So it's these three: Illinois, Florida, and Georgia. And these are the numbers. I'm going to write down these numbers over here. It's 50, 61, 76. Okay, now what is the rest of the statement saying? Less than a third of all bank failures that occurred during the time frame displayed occurred in 2010. So less than a third of all these occurred in 2010. That's what you have to figure out if that's true or not. Now, what is your 2010 column? It's this one here. So it's this. These are the three numbers. Now, what is the relationship that I'm looking for? Essentially, what I'm looking for is that 3 times the 2010 number needs to be less than this total number. Okay, so that is a relationship that I'm trying to figure out. And another thing that it's saying is each. Okay, so the minute I find one territory that doesn't meet this criteria, I can answer this statement as no, and I can move on. Okay, that's another thing which you have to keep in mind. Watch for these words: all, each. Understand the criteria that is there. For example, in the for statement number one, our criteria was what? More than 3 states, right? So we knew that we are looking no more than 3 states, which means that we were looking for less than or equal to 3 states, right? As soon as we found 4 states, we would have said that, okay, this statement is not true. So having that very clear idea of what it is that you're looking for before you start processing, that's very important. Otherwise, you will end up making mistakes, or you'll end up doing back and forth. Okay, and that back and forth will cost you a lot of time. Okay, so Let's come back over here. So these are the numbers 50, 61, 76. I'm going to now get these other numbers correspondingly. So here it's 16, and then I have 29, and then I have 21. Now 16 times 3 is 48. 48 is definitely less, so this one meets. 29 times 3, again, 29 approximated to 30, it's 90. So this one definitely is not less. 90 is not less than 61, which means that this each criteria is no longer met. So the answer over here is no, and I move on to my next statement. Okay, so let's now look at our last statement here. Where is my last statement? Here it goes. I'm going to move this here. Now, this is a statement which is very interesting. Okay, I'm going to look at this. The total number of bank failures in the 44 US states and territories included in the table grew from 2009 to 2010. So the total number of bank failures grew from 2009 to 2010, which means that if you total 2009, okay, this was less than the total of 2010. So this translation is very easy, but you have these many rows over here. So are you expected to calculate the sum over here? That is the main thing that this question is testing, that are you going to calculate the sum or are you going to do some estimation? And the correct answer over here is you are going to do estimation. Okay, now this is how you're going to do it. Now what are you looking for? Is 2009 less than 2010? If the answer is yes, then you select yes. If no, then the answer is no, right? So let's sort this by 2009 over here. Now what you see is all the big numbers have actually come down, right? So you first compare these big numbers, and again, this is your column. So let's just make sure that my column is highlighted. This is the column. This is, oh, let me just highlight the row. I'm not sure what's going on here. So I'm going to highlight this. This is one, and then this is the other one. Okay, now let's come down. You have, and again, you have to make sure you don't end up adding this 21 other states. Okay, so let's look at this. You have these four numbers, and you have these four numbers here. Okay, just add them up. Okay, so again, what you have here, 7, 8, 12, 12 plus 7. So over here, right? So did I do it correctly? 8, 12, 17, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you have 77 over here. Let's add this, 9, 10. You have a good 10. Okay, then 18, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 78 over here. Now this is a bigger number here, right? Now, how about if you, wait, let me see, 9, 11, 12, 18, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, okay. Now this is a bigger number here, and let's just verify that we did this correctly over here. Yes, and then here you have 77. So this is a little bit bigger number. Now you come back, go up over here and see how are the other numbers placed, and you don't look at these numbers here. Now, when you look at this, you see that here is a very big difference, 8. So this one really is 2010 is actually winning the race here. All these other numbers, that the delta over here is really small. Now over here you do see a delta of -4, okay, but here you have a +8 delta, right, which means that 2010 is actually winning. Let's go up here. You have another +3 over here, so 2010 is winning. Now here you have very little difference, right? So when you come over here, there are very few differences, and here there is 4. So overall, when you're just mapping these numbers, you are seeing that 2010 has a much bigger has a much bigger total as compared to 2009. And over here you can actually verify that as well. Again, you'll have to remove this 11 or again 11, and so yeah, so again, you don't really need to do any specific calculations here. You can just do a ballpark value. You can just estimate, and you can figure out that yes, 2010 was indeed larger than 2009, and hence the statement is correct. Okay. All right, so we are done with this question. Now, this question was definitely a time hog question, okay? So you will need to spend the right amount of time in order to solve this one, okay? Now, we are at the end of this session. I still have 2 more questions, I want to hear from you whether you want to solve these two questions or not, because I haven't really gotten any input from any one of you till now. Okay, so let me know if you want to solve these two other questions. Otherwise, I can share the links of those of the solutions to those questions, and you can solve those at your own convenience whenever you are in that mindset to prepare. So let me know what it is that you would want to do. So I'll give you guys 1 minute to tell me whether you want to carry on with this session, or do you want me to stop this? Because usually my sessions are very interactive, but today I will say, um, from you guys I'm not getting that sense that you're really enjoying the session. So I will do those two questions only if you tell me what have you learned from this session, and only if you hit the like button, because if you don't like the session, then I shouldn't be here, then we should end the session. So tell me, what is it that you've learned from this session so far? Okay, I'm going to start the timer, because tell me, what have you learned from this session? Because guys, you can solve these questions on your own as well. You don't need to spend the time here with me solving the questions if you're not really participating in the session. Approximation and estimation, okay. Upfront investment in reading the question and table will pay off, okay. Good, thank you Vibhor, thank you Ayan. How about others? Strategic pausing is a new technique that I've learned. It's helping a lot now. Very good, Akshata. Very nice. Other people. And have you all hit the like button? I want you to do that. Others. How do you solve before the session? How would you solve table analysis questions, and what would you now do going forward after solving these three questions with me? Because this is a very important thing. You guys are investing your time in your GMAT prep, right? So whatever time you're investing, you need to make sure that you're making the most from it. Okay. So if you're not learning anything from this, then don't be in the session. If you are learning, then tell me what it is that you're learning. And if you're learning, then that needs to not end uh, in this session, that needs to continue on um, as you are solving questions. Okay. Vibhor is asking, should I go with reading question first in TA questions? Yes and no. Okay. Let me first tell you what I mean by yes and no. When we did, and let's share this question here. In this question, what did we do? We read the entire data set. So before you should not be reading the statements till the time you don't completely understand the data set. Till the time you don't own the data set, you should not go ahead and look at the statements. That is rule number one. Okay. Number two, if you look at this question over here, in this question, we first understood the session. We first understood the entire data set, and then we quickly looked at the statements to understand what are the statements talking about. Okay, we didn't spend a whole lot of time interpreting the statements, but we just saw real quick New South Wales is typical in more categories than any other listed category thing. No listed is more geographically typical, and so on and so forth, right? So everything in these three statements was associated with the definition of more geographically typical. So we quickly read all the three statements, and then we said, you know what, we need to understand which states are geographically typical and which states are not in each of the four categories, right? So here again, you understood the data set, and only then you looked at the statements. Okay, and that too not in detail, but just to verify your hypothesis that yes, all that analysis is required. Okay, likewise in this question, we understood the data set completely, right? And that required us to draw all these insights and to link up all of these terms over here with these headers of table. We saw all of so we understood, okay, what all information is given, and then we looked at each statement one by one, and we solved each statement by breaking it into smaller parts. getting the data as we are reading the statement and then moving on. Okay, so that is the main thing that you have to keep in mind. Okay, all right. Athar is saying approach while solving the question and preparing the strategy before directly solving. Absolutely, that is very critical, because if you don't have a strategy, and thank you Athar for putting it so clearly, if you don't have a strategy uh, before you start looking at the data table, then you will get confused. You will end up doing a lot of back and forth. Okay. Akshata is asking, I believe need more practice to improve time management. Can you recommend some resources for questions? Again, official guide is a very good resource. eGMAT course has ample number of questions with detailed solutions. The way I'm solving these questions here right now, live in front of you, each and every question on the eGMAT platform has detailed video solutions so that you can see exactly how to approach these questions. Okay, even the text-based solutions have the exact process that you should be utilizing, and that is very critical. It's one thing to answer the question, it's another thing to answer those questions utilizing the right process. Okay, and the time management thing, Akshita, that you're talking about is, so I would want to comment on that. Time is always a consequence. Okay, in DI, and that's applicable across the board on verbal, quant, as well as data insights. It's even more applicable to data insights. Why? Because there is so much of data that you can get lost in it, which is where that owning the data set mindset is very important. That mindset is critical when you're reading the data set. And as you build, as you practice doing that, you will be able to see that your ability for solving data insights questions is will start to improve. You will see that. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Okay, all right. So thank you. I appreciate all the input over here. So now let's move to our question number 4. So here's question 4. And I'm not going to share the form link with you. You can put in your answers over here as itself. Okay, so here is the table for question 4. There you go. And here is the question. Okay, there you go. All right, let's see your answers here. I've given you upwards of 3 minutes to solve this question. And again, this question is one of the easier ones, even though it is categorized as hard. But if you understand the basic principle behind correlation, the first two statements are on correlation. So if you understand correlation, the first two statements would be slam dunk. The last statement, statement number 3, that is where things are interesting. Okay. And so I can see people are coming up with their answers here. The correct answer is yes, yes, no. So Atharv is correct. Yes, yes, no. Ritika, so correlation issue as well as the last statement. So we are going to look at that. Vibhor also correct. Yes, yes, no. Okay. So how about others? Let's get your inputs as well. Even if you haven't answered the third one, whatever you have answered, just tell me confidently what it is over here. So let me ask you some questions about this one. This is a fairly simple data set. Essentially, there are these survey has been done, and I'm going to ask you a question here. What do you make from this, the fact that these numbers don't add up to 100%? These numbers are more than 100%. What do you make from it? That's the inference that you need to be able to draw. Essentially, one person here, so a person here who's satisfied could also basically say that I have a positive mood. That same person could also say that I have a sense of purpose. There is an overlap. Absolutely, Akshata, there is an overlap. And drawing that inference is very, very important. Okay, that there is an overlap in these columns. Okay, now how about this part over here, that people who are giving satisfaction rating over here, would you see, would the same set of people give, so the 76% over here, is there any overlap with the 63%? There isn't. Why? Because these are two different groups over here. People in occupation number 2 are not related to people in occupation number 4. So again, just visualizing what the entire data set is very important over here. Okay. So all right. So we are done with that. Now let's take a look at what the first statement is saying. There is a positive correlation between percentages for satisfaction and those for purpose. So let me get the table here. Question number 4. Now, with correlation, things have to go in the same direction. They don't necessarily have to match each and everything. They have to go in the same direction. And that is very important to understand. Okay. So, what we have to figure out is correlation between satisfaction and purpose. So here, let's sort this. This is satisfaction. And then, so I have to look at this and I have to look at this purpose here. All right. So this is anyway increasing as I'm going down, right? These numbers are increasing. Now, are these numbers also increasing? Absolutely. You see there is an increase here, there is an increase here. Now here there is a decrease, but that's okay, because overall when you compare going from here, there is a definite increase in the purpose thing, and which is why even if there is this slight dip over here, this dip doesn't really make any impact on the correlation aspect. Okay, so this statement is correct, right? So we are done with statement number 1. Now let's take a look at statement number 2. There is a negative correlation. So we are talking about negative correlation between what? Positive mood and purpose. So negative correlation, which means they'll go in opposite direction, positive mood and purpose. So let's take up one. So let's take this up, positive mood and purpose. So this is going in increasing order here, obviously, because that's how I have sorted. Now, for purpose to be negatively correlated, I should be seeing a decrease in the values for purpose. Now, am I seeing that? Absolutely. I'm starting with 0.74 and I'm ending up at 0.44. By the way, this is a pretty consistent decline, except for the fact that over here 0.39 was my least number, and then here this number increased to 0.44, but overall so this is the only data point which is not going in that direction, but overall directionality wise there is a definite increase, which means that this is also a yes statement. Okay, so this is also yes. All right, so now let's take a look at the last statement. The majority of all respondents who indicated feeling satisfaction also indicated having a sense of purpose. Now, tell me something. What is this statement saying? Majority of all respondents. So, more than 50% of all the people who were satisfied, okay, also indicated having a sense of purpose. Let me understand this. What do I know about? So, majority of these people also have a sense of purpose. Can I even make that connection? Tell me. Remember when we started this off, we said that there is an overlap in all these, in these three, right? Now, in some of these, there would be overlap. In some of these, there may not be overlap, right? Maybe all of these 63 people are absolutely different from these 74 people, right? So, right. So again, we have no idea about the overall people who have the overlap in each of these categories between satisfaction and purpose, which is why we cannot really ask this question. We cannot really answer that question, which means the answer to this is no. Okay, so again, you have to get a complete sense of the data, and only then you can answer such questions with utmost comfort level. Okay, so now we are going to look at question number 5. Okay, now question 5 also has that same fundamental principle behind overlap. Okay, so let's look at that question now, and let me share the data set with you. Last question here. Again, for the previous question, if you want to see more details about how is it that you should be thinking about this entire visualization of, let me just, no, not this one, not, it's this question, yes. So let me just share a detailed video solution link with you so that you can see those cases. And why there is an overlap and why you can't answer this question. So you can look at this solution here in detail later on once you're done with this session. Okay. All right. So now let's solve this question. And I have shared with you this link here, right? Table number 5. Okay. And here is the question, last question in this session. There you go. All right, so we have answers appearing. So, how about others? Thank you, Akshata. Cannot be determined, can be determined, cannot be determined. Do we have any other answers? You guys have taken quite a bit of time here. All right. So the correct answer here is, let me give you 15 more seconds. So Atharv and Akshita are differing on statement one. Akshita thinks it cannot be determined. Atharv thinks that it can be determined. How about others? And that is the main difference, main faltering point in this question. Statement two is straightforward. Obviously, you will not get statement two correct if you don't understand the data set. That goes without saying. Let's see, Vibhor is saying can be determined, can't be determined, can't be determined. Okay. Okay, so again, Vibhor is saying same thing as a third. No, no, no. Vibhor is differing on statement number two. Okay, all right. Okay, good. Let's solve this. So again, as I said, this question also has the overlap aspect over here, and overlap aspect is happening with both statements 1 and 3, but there is something that makes statement 1 can be determined and makes statement 3 cannot be determined. Okay, and over here this is can be determined. Okay, now why is that the case? Let's understand. Okay, over here what you see, let's look at this. Oh, sorry, let's go back to the table. Question 5. Okay, so so over here we have these 100 people who have been so 100 parents who have been surveyed. Table shows percentages of all who indicated that they strongly agreed, somewhat disagreed. So we understand that these are the four columns over here. So we are mapping the columns as we are reading the data set. No other response choices were available, so these were the only four responses. No respondent could choose more than one response choice, which means that if a parent selected strongly agree, that parent would not be able to select somewhat agree, which makes sense, right? Okay. And then not every respondent gave an opinion for every activity, which means, what does that mean? This means that the total of this column, of this row, need not be 1. It may be less than, so it is less than or equal to 1. Okay. So that is the level of understanding that you need to have as you are reading this data set along with the table. And again, another thing is that there are 100 parents, which means that this number corresponds to 18, this number corresponds to 17, so on and so forth. And again, all of these, if you multiply this with 100, and you add these up, then the total will be less than or equal to 100. Okay, so that is something which you have. Now Vibhor has a question: will I get any point if one is incorrect out of 3? Absolutely not. You get complete credit for the question only if you answer all the 3 statements correctly, and that is a bit of a, yeah, you have to answer all the 3 statements correctly. Okay, so good question. All right, so now with this understanding, let's look at our statements. Statement 1 says, did most respondents who indicated they somewhat agreed that class sizes should be reduced? So we are looking at, as I'm reading, again, as I'm reading the statement, I am reading it by pausing. Did most respondents, so most means greater than or equal to 50% of it, right? Who indicated which kind of, what did they indicated they somewhat agreed. So I have to look at this column over here, somewhat agreed, for which thing that class sizes should be reduced. So reducing class sizes. So we are talking about these 47 people. Did most of them, which means that did more than half of them, which means 23.5. Again, 23.5 is not really a number. So did more than 24, more than or equal to 24 people, also indicate, what did these people indicate? That they somewhat agreed that music classes should be added. Okay, so now this is my next thing. Music classes should be added. These are 22 people. Okay, so now what this question is saying is 22, so did at least 24 people also say that music classes should be added? This is not absolute, because the number that you're looking for, 24, is anywhere bigger than 22. The answer to this question is no. Even though there is no, the overlap aspect is something that we don't know, we still can answer this question as a definite no over here, because sorry, we can definitely say, we can definitely answer this question as a no, that we are definitely sure that this is a no. So can be determined. Okay, let me explain it a little bit more over here. So you have 47 people in one group and you have 22 people in this other group. The question that you have to answer is at least, is this, is, because you have that most over here, 24, is 24 part of this? That is what you have to, so is this number at least 24? And the answer is no. Is this number at least 24? And the answer is no. Okay, now there could be a scenario in which these 47 people, all of these people, these 22 people are all part of this. Okay, that could very well be a scenario. But again, the question is this 22 at least 24? Absolutely not. So in this case, the answer is no. There could be another scenario in which this, for these 47 people, could be very completely different from these 22 people. In that case also, the answer is no. So whichever case you take, whichever extreme cases we are taking, even in both the extreme cases, we are getting the answer as a definite no, which means that the answer to this question can be determined. Okay, that is why this statement is can be determined. Okay, now if so, again, it was really a number play over here. Yes, your understanding that the overlap could or could not be there, that understanding is there. But because of the choice of numbers over here, you can actually answer that question as a definite no, which means that it can be determined. Okay, so you have to be very clear about what the question is asking. Okay. Statement number 2, all of you, I think, answered this question correctly, but let's no, some of you made a mistake over here. So let's look at that. What percentage of all responders chose not to give an opinion? So not to give an opinion, which means they are not part of the table, about whether athletics facilities should be improved. Again, in this question, you don't really have to find the exact answer. All you have to figure out, is there enough information in the data set such that you can answer the question? And definitely this is something which we were able to figure out in our data set understanding itself, that this number is less than or equal to 1, which means that if I simply add this up and I subtract it from 1, I will be able to get the answer to this question. So the answer is can be determined. Okay, now let's take a look at the last one over here. What percentage of all respondents indicated that they strongly disagreed with all 4 actions? Now here, when you think about it, strongly disagree over here, what percentage of all respondents? Now here, because there is an overlap, I cannot really figure out what that percentage is. For all I know, all these 17 people also are part of these, are also people who talk about expanding library hours, or maybe these 17 are completely different from these 20. So I really cannot figure out what percentage of all respondents strongly disagreed on all the 4 actions. Another way to visualize this is, these are 4 Venn diagrams, and really I need to figure out this part over here, and there is no data over here in the table that will give me that information, which means that the correct answer here is cannot be determined. So this is the only statement that cannot be determined. Other than that, and that is because there is an overlap and we don't know what that overlap is, but that same overlap exists for statement number 1 as well. But because of the way the statement has been constructed, because of the numbers over here, numbers particularly, oh, sorry, what happened? particularly over here, the 47 and the 22, because of these numbers, that's the reason why you can actually answer that question. Okay. All right. So with this, we have come to the end of this webinar. And I think who had asked me? Akshata had asked me as to how you can practice more questions. So let me just show you the kind of content you can see on in the eGMAT course. This is your GITA course. And let me talk about, so we first talk about graphic interpretation. So we teach you the foundations of it, again, all the concepts that are required, we teach all of that. And then we essentially teach you bit by bit as to how to draw inferences from charts, how to translate question statements, how to avoid calculations. And then we add more skills over here. How do you do simple calculations? How do you do estimations? And again, how do you master miscellaneous charts, right? So all of this over here, each one of these files has at least 5 questions. You learn from the instructor as to how to solve these questions. You then practice that right there and then, and you make sure that you have truly learned the skills that have been taught. Okay. And then we go into statistics. Now, statistics module is actually available to you free of charge in the free trial, so you can see the level of detail in the solutions that we provide to you, and then you can make a decision whether this is the learning style that resonates with you, and then you can make appropriate decisions. Now, table analysis. Again, we introduce table analysis questions to you. Again, how do you tackle basic TA? Here we talk about basic sorting. Okay, then we add quant element to it. Again, all the estimation that needs to happen, right? There was that estimation of sum that we talked about. All of the similar types of quant related things. How do you calculate percentages with regards to table analysis? All of that is covered in this file. And then we essentially give you a practice file right there and then, so that you cement your learnings. Okay. And you can see this is an actual student account, and you can see the number of hours or the minutes that the student has spent in internalizing everything. Okay. Now, we drew lots of inferences today, right? Today, we simply talked about certain questions, right? Now, you have the right set of questions presented to you in a consolidated manner at the right time, with a certain theme. And the theme for this file is drawing inferences, and then giving you the right kind of practice right there and then. Okay. Then exploring varied question forms, can be determined, cannot be determined, those kinds of things. And then here in 5.3, we give you much higher difficulty level questions. And then we put it all together on correlation, teach you correlation explicitly, because correlation is not something which is tested in problem solving in quant, which is why whatever stuff is not taught explicitly in quant, we actually teach you separately over here. For example, median, mean, range, and variance. Yes, these are taught in quant, but not in the context of how is it that you infer those values from a table, how is it that you get mean of the data from a chart. So all of that in the context of GITA has been covered over here, right? And then likewise correlation over here, right? And then you do cementing. You do that right level of practice. You learn how to build the error log. We teach you how is it that you should be thinking about your error log. We give you examples of so that you get accustomed to filling the error log the right way. That's very important. Okay. And then we essentially you do medium cementing over here, and then you practice difficult OG questions in hard cementing, so that you get used to, so that you gain that confidence, you get that right kind of practice before you go into hard cementing utilizing Scholarania. Okay, so this is a very brief snapshot of how your GITA course would look like. Essentially, the entire platform is built on similar principles. You get feedback right there and then, right? So over here, for example, this student fared really well in the foundations, but in learning level 1, he was just at the average level. In learning level 2, he was between 60th and between 60 and 75 percentile, right? And then how the student did cementing in medium, but did not really achieve his goal, but he was able to sustain, and then he was able to achieve his goal in hard cementing. So again, all of this exists, and it's I welcome you all to try out the free trial and see if this is something that you would enjoy, that you would really benefit from. All right, then. With this, we've come to the end of this session, and I would love to get feedback from you. If you have any questions, you can send those questions to me at payal@e-gmat.com. Okay, and thank you, Ganesh. Thank you, Akshata. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Ganesh. Thank you, Book. And KP is asking, this is Data Insights Series 3. Can you please share the recording for EP1 for review? Absolutely. Um, let me, I think those recordings were shared up in the beginning. Let me just, yeah, here is the recording for the first session, and which was episode 1, two-part analysis. And here is a recording for, sorry, graphic interpretation. So here are the recordings. Okay. All right. Somebody was asking me about PPT. Frankly, the PPT isn't really, wouldn't really make much of a difference. You have the tables, so I would suggest just look at that, look at those tables. Again, all of these questions you can find on GMAT Club. I can give you the links to those questions if that helps. So let me give you the links to these questions. And you will see our detailed solutions, detailed video solutions for each one of these questions. So you can definitely, so this is the first question, and this is question number 2. And all right, KP, I will do that. Just give me, let me just give you all these questions here. So definitely look at the video solutions. They are very, very detailed. And with every solution, I also present faltering point analysis. So look at that. I would welcome you to give your comments over there on the forum, and then I will be sure to reply to those. And then you wanted to get the recording for the other 2 sessions. So let me get that. And tell me, how are you going to change the way you prepare for table analysis? Tell me that while I share the recording, the previous 2 sessions. Okay, how do I copy this? Okay, let me get this from YouTube directly. And guys, don't forget to like the session so that other GMAT aspirants can also benefit from it. Share. All right. This is episode 1 or 2, I'm not sure. This was on graphic interpretation. Here it is. And this is then TPA here. And then next session will be on MSR, and that would be our entire series. There are 4 links to table analysis questions. We had 5. We're missing 1 link. Okay. Which one are we missing? Let's see. Which question are we missing? With reference to this statistician, according to federal deposit, a survey, a school. Okay, let's see. The first one. Are we missing this one? Yeah, I think now you should have all the questions. Right? Okay, all right. So That's it then. And I wish you all the very best for your preparation. If you have any questions, just write to me at payal@e-gmaat.com. And you can follow me on um, Reddit as well. And yeah, just utilize the free trial and see if you like the teaching methodology, and definitely um, happy learning. That's what I would say. Okay. All right then. I'm